Good morning, one and all. Today we'll discuss about metal forming process. This metal forming process is of two types: hot working process and cold working process. If we are heating the metal above recrystallization temperature, then we call it as hot working process. And if we are doing the process, it means deformation process below the recrystallization temperature, then we call it as cold working process. In case of hot working process, as the metal is getting heated, there are more chances that the metal will react with the oxides present in the air, and hence the strength of the material will decrease. But as the metal is getting heated to recrystallization temperature, it becomes easy for us to deform the material. In case of cold working process, the strength of the material will increase, and we call this process as strain hardening process. So there are, as we are not heating it, there are no chances of the metal getting reacted with the oxides present in the air. But the thing is, in case of cold working process, the deformation of metal is little difficult. It means it takes so much of time. If the thickness of material is too high, deformation will become difficult. Next is strain hardening. Strain hardening is also called as work hardening process. It is strengthening of metal or polymer by plastic deformation. As I told you, cold working process is also called as strain hardening process because the strength of material will increase. The reason for increasing the strength of material is uh, initially you have a component of larger cross section, and when you are going for cold working process, we are going to decrease the cross section of the component. Now here the elongation will take place and compression will also take place. As a result, the molecules of the metal will come nearer and nearer, and hence the strength of the material will increase. Next, let us learn about recovery, recrystallization, and grain growth. Here are the figures. Now, initially, this is the condition where we are heating the material. When material is getting heated, now when you release it, it will come to recovery stage. It means it will release all its internal stresses. Once it releases the internal stresses, it starts removing the defective grains, and it will form a crystal again. So this process is called as recrystallization. Once the crystal is formed, this all small crystals will form a large size of grains, and this is called as grain growth. Next one is bending operation. Bending is a metal forming process in which the sheet metal piece is caused to bend and get deformed in the desired shape by application of force, are called bending operation. See, here you have a die, here you have a workpiece, and this is the punch. And now, depending upon the design which you required over the workpiece, we change the punch. The die will be constant and punch will be moving. The punch will come and hit the workpiece, and as a result it will get deformed. So we have different types of bending operation, like channel bending, U bending, V bending, offset bending, and edge bending. Here the all the dies will be constant and punch will be moving. So the design of the punch and design of the die, see here it is a square shape, and if you see here we have some triangular shape, means V shape. So similarly, depending upon the design which we required, we change the design of the die and design of the punch. Next is shearing operation. In case of shearing operation, we separate both the parts. Here this is the die and this is the punch. There is some rectangle between die and punch. As a result, the sheet metal will get separated easily. Next one is blanking and piercing. Blanking and piercing are both material removing processes. Means here we have a die for removing of material, but in case of blanking, the part which we are punching is workpiece and the part which is left out is scrap. But in case of piercing, the part which we are punching is the scrap and the part which we are left with is workpiece. Next one is embossing and debossing. Embossing and debossing is, this process is we generally use for making medals and some craft. Like if you see in the temples, we have some embossed figures of animals or gods, goddesses, and all. So that is made using embossing. So, embossing is a process of creating the raised figures, and whereas debossing is the process of creating relief images, recreased or released images. So, here in case of embossing, the material will come out, and in case of debossing, the material will go inside. Here, in case of embossing, the mirror image of the things which are finding here will be reflected behind the workpiece. It means if you are punching from the back, uh, this will bulge out, so you have the mirror image of same at the back. But in case of coining, we have different operations. See, this is coining operation. Here, see the coins which we are using, the 1 rupee, 2 rupee coins which we are using are the example of coining process, means the products which we get in coining process. Here we have different designs at both the sides. So here is a definition. Coining is a forming process by which very fine and intricate details can be created on the surface of the workpiece. So here you will get the details, and both the sides you can have different designs. Next one is wire drawing process. See, wire drawing process is always a cold working process. In case of wire drawing process, we'll be having a stock. It means a coil which has a workpiece of larger diameter, and this will be passed through a die, and this is the design, means the cross section of wire which you require, and these are the supports. And now when the here you have the draw box, it means this will be rotating, and because of the pull force, the wire from this coil will come through this die and gets rotated at this draw block. So here, depending upon the diameter which you require, you can choose the size of the die. And now this larger cross section wire will come to smaller cross section wire. Here the strength of the wire will increase as we are going for cold working process. Next one is rod drawing. In case of rod drawing, you have two dies, and this is the tube of rod of larger diameter, and this is the rod of smaller diameter, and these are the jaws, and this is the carriage. This carriage will hold the rod with the help of jaws, and it will move to certain distance. Once we get the rod of required length, they cut the rod at that particular area here, and the carriage will again get clamped here with the help of jaws, and again the carriage will carry the rod. And in case of tube drawing process, here you have a mandrel in between. Here there is a tube of larger diameter and tube of smaller diameter. These two are dies, and now the tube will pass through these two dies. The mandrel will help us to maintain certain cross section within the tube. And now the final tube what we are getting will be collected at the last. It means it will, after getting a required length, even this tube will also be cutted. Next one is spinning. Spinning is two types: cold spinning and hot spinning. If we are doing spinning operation below the recrystallization temperature of the metal, it means recrystallization temperature of the workpiece which we are using, then we call it as cold spinning. And if the spinning is done above the recrystallization temperature, then we call it as hot spinning. This spinning process is generally used for making axisymmetric components. See, here is the wooden friction block. See, initially the workpiece is like this, straight, and this is the rotating spindle, and this is the headstock of the mandrel. Now what happens is, when this is rotating, here you have some handles to change the position. See, this is the lathe steady rest, and over this you have a tool rest. Um, these are the wooden backup supports. And now what happens is, when this is rotating, these supports will move accordingly to give a proper shape to this component. See, initially it is a blank workpiece, it means a straight workpiece, and now when this is rotating, this hand tool will also move accordingly and it will give shape to the component. So these are adjustable pins, and now depending upon the size of the component and the position we require, we can change the position and we can even fix it at some angles also. But the thing is, here you can produce only axis symmetric components. That's about forming operations. Thank you for listening.